No one appeared in the back half of the courtroom. Thoughts raced through Steve Cole's mind as his eyes darted across the room. How did this happen? Was he really to blame? How will the jury members decide whether there was enough evidence against him to warrant a trial? Why are there even cuts on his hands? Why can't he remember what happened the last 3 weeks of his life? Steve thought he might wake up soon and discover that none of this had ever happened, that he wasn't trying to defend himself, that Erica wasn't dead. He shifted in his chair. The wet cotton of his shirt collar burned against his neck, like the branches of the trees in the ravine where Erica was found. The wool of his suit scratched his legs, his hands. He wanted to wipe the sweat off of his forehead, but he was afraid that he would seem too nervous to the jury if he even moved. He wanted to run out of the courtroom, stand in the February snow, and feel his tears freeze as they rolled down his face. He looked over at the papers in front of his lawyer. The names Stoneham, Smith, and Manchester embossed at the top of the page. Steve couldn't even bring himself to look at Stoneham's face. Stoneham's face was chiseled and sharp. There was no room for emotion unless closing remarks in the case called for a strong emotional appeal. The same thought kept running through Stoneham's head. This boy couldn't remember who he was, much less where he was, for the last 3 weeks of his life. When Stoneham suggested Steve go to Dr. Lippman for psychological examinations, Steve broke down. He told Stoneham that the cocaine use beforehand became daily about 6 weeks ago, and that he started mixing drugs shortly before he lost his memory. It was the beginning of the 4th day. The prosecutor stood. I would like to call to the stand a Miss Kathleen O'Connor. Stoneham jumped. We have testimony from Dr. Lippman, with whom she has been seeking therapy, that Miss O'Connor should not be able to testify in this case. I submit his reports to you, Your Honor, with outlines that outlines the fact that Miss O'Connor has been known to compulsively lie, and that her perception of the truth is often distorted. We believe that it would be inappropriate and possibly detrimental if Miss O'Connor actually testified. The testimony for the case was beginning to rely on character witnesses, and because no specific reason was mentioned for having Kathleen O'Connor testify, the judge said he would review the report and decide whether or not to allow her to testify the next day. Kathleen looked at Dr. Lippman, seated next to her, then bowed her head. She saw him with that pile on his lap. She stood up, adjusted her dress, and solemnly walked away. Dr. Lippman stared at the chair where she sat. When he gained the strength, he looked at the letter on the top of the page. Dear Dr. Lippman, I just had a session with you, and you told me to start writing letters to a friend so that I could actually start opening up and actually understand myself more. Well, I don't have friends. I don't know if I've ever let anyone see these letters, but maybe I'll just write them to you. You were asking me about my childhood in session today. Do all doctors ask a person about their childhood? I guess you must figure that patients out there must have some sort of abuse in their lives if they wanted to kill their mother or something, but no, I wasn't beaten or starved, and I didn't even know what the word incest was until I actually checked out the spelling of incest in the dictionary. I know, I'm avoiding the subject. Open up. you said. Open up. God damn it. Fine. As a child, I wasn't liked by other kids. I was too smart, you see, and I was taught at an early age to respect authority. Actually, I didn't think I was ever taught that, but my parents didn't seem to teach me much of anything. I just knew I had to listen to them when they yelled at me. All my life, I was afraid of my father. He never really was a father to me, for he wasn't there often, and when he was home, he always seemed to yell at me. I figured that I must have always done something wrong, so he always seemed to yell at me. I just figured that I had to be able to, do something so that he would actually be happy with me. Hence the self-esteem problems, I guess. I think that's why I got all messed up with all those other men too, Doc. But you said to talk about that at a later session. The thing is, they always told me that I had to act a certain way, and that I had to do all of these things, but I never knew why I had to do them. If I was actually be a good person, then I wanted to know exactly what the hell decided what was good. I mean, from what I understood, good wasn't fun. It wasn't even self-fulfilling. But I was going to do what they wanted, so I went to a good school and I decided to study in a field that I didn't even like. But you see, that would get me a good job with a good pay. Correct that one. With good pay, even if I didn't even like it. And it wouldn't even be it would make everyone in society think that everything was good in my life. If I just went through the motions, people would actually think that I was happy, and then they might actually leave me alone. But that didn't work. Doc, I'm tired. These medicines that you're actually giving me are making me they're really knocking me out. I'll write later. She never signed her letters. She always typed them so that they could never be traced to her personally. She made sure she tried to cover all of her tracks. Lippman pressing his right hand over his eyes, almost in an effort to hold his face together.